So today we're going to be talking about 5 competitive products and features that Tesla has that I think are going to be true competitive differentiators. First, we're going to talk about automatic collision avoidance. This is the ability for the car to have a force field of sorts, and the Tesla car will never be able to hit anything ever again, whether moving or not. We're going to, of course, cover FSD and its road to robotaxi, Teslabot, Cybertruck, and if we have time, we'll also cover Semi. So today I asked John Gibbs to join us. John, he's also known as Dr. Know-It-All on YouTube. He has a very successful YouTube channel, started it in 2019. And so I'm quite excited to get his perspective on all these topics. You know how sometimes you meet somebody who's incredibly interesting, he's intelligent, and he's fun? John studied physics, specialized in astronomy. He's a professor in multimedia with expertise in 3D animation. But then he didn't stop there. He went on and got a master's in AI. I think he did that specifically because he wanted to do YouTube Tesla videos. Welcome, John. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. It's going to be a blast.
Can't wait. And we're definitely going to get brighter today. All right. So, John, you're exactly the kind of person that I wanted to bring on. I want to get your expertise and perspective on these various products because you've done deep dives on each of these. Let's start off with automatic collision avoidance. I know you just did a video on it. I've been focusing a lot on this as well. Like, in my perspective, this is a feature that I think it was just literally a month ago or less that Ashok, who's a director of Autopilot, did a video on YouTube, and he talked about this feature that's coming to Tesla. And I have not heard very many people except me and Omar talking about this. And of course, you did a video on it as well. In a sense that I think that it is very critical. I think it's actually the one thing that if Tesla launches this, it's going to be massive because they don't need to wait for regulatory approval. But you know, the concept that the car will never hit anything ever again is amazing. So please just kick us off. Tell me everything you know about this and what your thoughts are.
Sure. Well, I think I found out about it along with everybody else in the outside world when Ashok presented his paper. And you know, ever since Andrej Karpathy had left, there was kind of a gap in like the presentations that were available. So I was feeling bad about that or sad about that, I guess. And then it was amazing to have Ashok's presentation pop up. I think it was back in June when he presented it, but they kind of embargoed it for 2 months before it went public. So it was somewhere towards the end of August, and I saw it and I was like, whoa. All of this is the collision avoidance is based on the occupancy network work that they have been working on clearly very, very hard for the past year. And I just actually did another video on the occupancy network from AI Day, the presentation and the differences that are already coming about just in the space of a couple of months. But one of the outgrowths of the occupancy network is that they are working on this collision avoidance system. So occupancy network, people are like, oh, FSD beta, got to pay all this extra money. It's a party trick. You can drive and it'll navigate. I don't think it's a party trick, but I'm just saying some people might say. But anyway, the collision avoidance thing, like you said, is so critical. It is not going to be something that is only available to the people who pay extra. That's just going to come standard. It's just going to be part of your Tesla. Even if you just get the base model and you don't pay any extra money for any of the software or anything, that's going to be basic safety systems. And yeah, it's amazing. And essentially it's just like the car is always looking out. They showed a simulation in Ashok's paper, not at AI Day, but in the paper itself, where they turned the car loose in simulation, right? Not in real life because they didn't want to do this, but they just basically started it driving with no driver in the driver's seat. And the car, you know, was kind of weaving around the road a little bit like a drunk person, but it was avoiding hitting anything. So even without anybody at the wheel, the car was not hitting things and it was driving for a long distance. You know, I don't know exactly how many 100 meters, but it was a long time. But that was very, very impressive.
Yeah. So my understanding is that it's just using the 8 cameras around the car. And what I understand, I don't know if this is true or not, but that it can be applied to all Teslas, even the ones that are previously built. We'll find out. But just the 8 cameras alone, it's able to determine if a space around it, 360-degree view every 10 milliseconds, That's 100 times per second of whether the space around it is occupied or not, whether static or not. So it can't hit a basketball pole, it can't hit a person, it can't hit any cars. And I love the one where they showed the video of the car driving down the street, and it will show all the driveways, and it'll show whether or not it's occupied or not.
Right.
And I think
Right.
the breakthrough that they had, or this is not a breakthrough, but just the kind of like thinking that made them move forward with this was that initially they were trying to label everything. They were trying to understand, is that a
Right.
basketball pole? What is that? Now they don't care. They just want to know, is there something there that's going to be an object? Again, whether it's moving or not, we better not hit or not. So
Right.
tell me about like what is it about this occupancy network that that impressed you the most? How you know, how accurate do you think this is going to be? Just anything about this that, you know, when you did your deep dive, what's your, you know, what blew
Yeah.
your mind the most?
Well, I mean, last year I have to say, let's to back up to this semantic segmentation,
Yeah.
which is the whole idea of understanding the world. That blew my mind. And that was something that Andrej Karpathy presented, and then they represented it at AI Day #1 in 2021. And I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. But the problem with the semantic segmentation just means basically breaking up the world. So let's see if I can do this.
Mm.
Surfboard, you know, photograph, model of the starship, you know, human being, shirt with dojo. So you're
Mhm.
breaking up the world into things you understand. But what if there's something that comes about? I'm trying to look for something that I don't know. It's like, I don't know what this is, but there's something
What is
here,
that?
right?
Yeah.
It happens to be just a piece of a paper towel. So, but you know,
I
so it's
thought
like
you I thought you I thought you were going to show your YouTube award that you got or something like that.
no, I wish, right? So, but basically the problem with semantic segmentation is you need to know what everything is. And
Mm.
they're still doing that. So it's very important to understand they haven't abandoned that at all. What they've done is they've split so there's all the vision stuff that happens, and then at a certain point they split the vision into semantic segmentation, and they're like, okay, what is everything? And then parallel is running this occupancy network. And so the occupancy network is like it's concerned with what things are. It tries to understand them because you can see like
Mm.
there's white for like background elements, and red for parked cars, and blue for things that are moving, and green for curbs, and I think brown for like stuff in driveways. So there's and then purple for road. I think it's like a dark purple or something. So it basically understands like what the world is in at least a basic sense, but it's not going to read a stop sign, and it's not going to say like, oh, I need to like stop at this stop sign. That's for the semantic segmentation thing. The occupancy network is just going like, here's the basics of the world. Even if I don't know what the hell it is, I need to make sure I avoid that. And the reason why, and so last year when Andre was talking, he was talking about bird's eye view network, right? Which was creating like this 2D, you know, like you're looking down on a map and you're seeing your car driving through it, which is fantastic. But the problem with that is that you can't see the volumetric space around you. So as you're driving, is there, you know, if this is literally a paper towel that's lying on the road, you'll see an
Mm.
object there, but it's like, how much vertical space does it take up? So if it's just laying on the road, it's like, drive over it. Who cares? It's no big deal. But if that happened to be a block that was sitting up, you know, half a meter or something, or a couple of feet, it's like, you better avoid that. And so it needs to have volumetric understanding, which means it needs to know 3-dimensional, not just 2D. So that's a huge breakthrough. And the real breakthrough is it doesn't have to know anymore what it is. It tries.
Mm.
It's like, okay, is this thing a car? Or I don't know what the hell it is. And I think it labels of what I don't know what it is kind of things as kind of a yellowish or a brownish color. Anyway, if I'm remembering correctly, they didn't ever explain that, but I was just kind of looking at the videos and going like, okay, this is this is this. But it's just incredible to think about the fact that they're able to compute the semantic scene information at the same time that they're doing the occupancy network, and that the occupancy network can take precedence when things get confusing. If it's like, I don't know what it
Mm.
is, but it's big, I better stop or move around it or something. That is more important than understanding what everything is. Honestly, even we human beings, if you're driving like in the dark or something, a lot of times you'll see stuff and you're like, I don't know what that is, but I'm moving over to the other lane because I don't know what there's something over there. It might be a person, it might be a garbage bag. I don't care. I'm getting out of the way. So we do that too. Like we you know, just knowing that something is there takes precedence over knowing exactly what it is at all times as we drive.
Yeah, I'm blown away how quickly it can do it, like 10
Uh,
microseconds,
yeah. Uh,
360.
Yeah, milliseconds, I think, not microseconds, but
I'm sorry.
yeah. No, it's fine.
Milliseconds.
I was like, don't give people too much optimism. They'll be like, wow. So,
Milliseconds,
yeah.
hundredths per second. It's like imagine if you have a car now that all of a sudden, over the air update, and it's not going to be able to hit anything anymore. It won't be able to do that anymore. It'll protect you from that. That is, I think, a massive, massive, value proposition for our Tesla's cars. And now you said that
Right.
it's going to be just rolled out to all cars. And so this is the question I didn't know, was whether or not it's just going to be part of the brand, it's part of the Tesla safety, and so they'll just make it to every car gets it
Right.
automatically, or is it part of FSD? And if you buy the one version of EAP or FSD, then you get it. Do we
Okay.
know that for sure?
So we don't know that for sure. I should have been very careful to speak that. This is my assumption because of what was said in the talks, that I'm
Mm.
pretty sure. I have not seen an announcement from Tesla that says, collision avoidance is going to be included in every car. But that's my understanding from listening to the talks multiple times, is that that's what they're going to do. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we should definitely not overpromise here, but
Yeah.
that's what I think is going to happen. And it makes sense, right? If safety is number one priority, why would
Yeah.
Tesla not include something that's like the most important factor for safety?
So I do think you're right. It's going to be just for every car. And that's why I'm thinking it's going to be for all cars in the past. But this is something, okay, and this is what I've been trying to, understand. But does not require regulation. We don't need to wait for robo-taxi. But when this comes out, and I'm gonna guess, I don't know, somewhere this next year, if not sooner, but when it comes out, would you ever, anybody in the world, ever buy another car that does not have this feature that is able to hit things? You won't be able to do it. And then they showed this thing where it's driving down and it will avoid and do evasive maneuvers if something comes in front, because it'll quickly figure out
Right.
what is the open areas and what should I do and where should I go that's going to be less chance of me hitting something. So I think it's going to be massive for the company, the stock, the sales.
Right.
And we don't have to wait for robo-taxi. And that's where I'm going. If they add some of it to FSD, then they'll be able to just actually even charge for that. But I
Right.
think you're right.
Right.
So what's your thoughts on the ultrasonic sensors being removed? That was big of a controversy this week.
Yeah.
How does this help with that? Yeah.
So, okay, so I think the ultrasonic sensors, I believe, are actually incredibly tightly related to all of this stuff. And I don't think people have put the
Yeah.
pieces together yet. So,
Yeah.
and again, I did the talk about this. So you definitely, if you want to like get into the weeds a little bit more on this, watch the video that I did just a couple of days ago. But it's
Mhm.
essentially what happened was I spoke to one of the engineers after the talk, and I started asking very specific questions about occupancy network. And the next version, so not 69.2.3, but probably 10.69.3, is
Mhm.
going to have a scalable resolution like voxel size. Essentially, so what currently the occupancy network is at 30 centimeters per side for the cube, so ish like this, right? So that's a pretty big thing, right? So it's kind of human head size ish,
Mm.
again. So you can't break the world down any smaller than that, and the problem is that you can only look about 100 meters ahead of you. And if you think about, you're going 75 or 80 miles an hour down a highway, you're covering 100 meters like that. It's like no time at all.
Yeah.
And so it has that. I don't know, do you have full self-driving beta?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you did. So that thing where when you're driving rapidly and you're using full self-driving beta, a lot of times it feels like it's not realizing what's going on until the last second, and then it's like, whoa, I got to
Mm.
slow down. So I think that what's going to happen instead with this sort of resolution independence level of detail that changes continuously is up close. It's going to have very, very tiny voxels. So it'll like maybe break it down to like 1 centimeter or something. So it'll have a very, very dense occupancy network right near the car. And as you go away further and further, the voxels are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, this person was telling me that you could see the sky. So the car can't see the sky right now because it's outside of the volume that it's calculating.
Mhm.
So humans can see the sky, but we don't see every single pixel in the sky. We just see a giant blue thing back there. So what'll happen is when you get to that distance, it'll just be like a big giant 1 voxel thing that's like sky. So that allows much more precision, much more distance to be able to be seen as you're driving far away, but equally it gives you much more precision up close. So
Okay.
you're able to see things far away because it's just rendering them at very, very low resolution. But then you're able to see things at very high resolution up close. And guess what ultrasonic sensors are for? I was going to get, I was like, you're like, where's he going to get to his point? The ultrasonic sensors.
I got it.
Yeah.
What is
Okay.
it?
So ultrasonic sensors are like, when things are pretty close, within maybe a meter, meter and a half, something like that. Sorry, I had to deal with metric mostly, but anyway, a couple of feet. So it tells you how far away you are by bouncing sound signals off of the objects. It reflects back in again, but it only works at close range. But you don't need that anymore if you're able to use optical sense. If you're able to actually optically define what's going on at a very high resolution, then, because 30 centimeters, right? Again, if you're looking at this, that's not accurate enough to park your car. You might miss and like park right over the curb or hit the wall or something. But if you can get down to like 1 centimeter, then yeah, for sure you can park your car. So you can do things that you wouldn't have been able to do previously without ultrasonics. Now you have the ability to do that. So why do you need ultrasonics? And the last piece of this puzzle was that Elon Musk, if we remember a couple of weeks ago, he said that prior to AI Day, they were working on Teslabot to have a demo, and they were also working on the actual smart summon. He said real smart summon. And in my mind, the real smart summon, and they failed. They didn't quite get there in time. But that is related to this high density occupancy network that's infinitely variable in level of detail. And the reason why it was important that it happened by September 30th is because they started shipping cars without ultrasonics. Basically people are already receiving them. And they missed it. And you notice that, yeah, well, people are getting the cars without the ultrasonic sensors because they can look around the car and it doesn't have those little pucks anymore. But that there's a lot of the features like the auto park smart summon, things like that, they said are disabled until a software update. And that's the software update that was supposed to happen by September 30th, but didn't. Outside point of view, I don't know, speculation, but just to be clear, but I think that's a pretty clear
Explain how
trail.
smart summon, why is that affected by ultrasonic sensors?
Well, because if you don't have this high resolution, excuse me for a sec, if you don't have the ability to detect things at very, very precise resolution close by with cameras, then you need the ultrasonic sensors to tell you how far away you are from things. So imagine let's do smart park, not smart summon. It's probably easier. So you've got your parking space and there's the end of the parking space, and you have to pull in and manage to avoid the cars beside you, not hit the curb thingy that's there. As you're doing the pulling in thing, the ultrasonic sensors are constantly going like you're, 16 inches away from this side and 5 inches away from this side and whatever. So, but without the ultrasonic sensors and without the higher level of detail in the new version of the software,
gotcha.
With this scalable, you just don't have the resolution to be able to park. So it's like every single item that they're like is delayed. I was like, yeah, exactly, because they don't have the occupancy network refined to that extent yet.
Okay. Well, I trust them. I mean, they obviously know what they're doing, but it's going to be awesome. You know what? Strategically, I think of when I hear this, I think that sets them up for licensing. So if you don't need to worry about radar, you don't need to worry about ultrasonic sensors, and basically you can just take the 8 cameras and be able to not only forget full self-driving, just imagine this concept of automatic collision avoidance. So now any car manufacturer can any car can pay. I think Omar from Homar's blog said he estimates it between $2,000 to $5,000. You get the 8 cameras, you can outfit it, you get a computer in the middle, and now you license this technology from Tesla, and now your car will never be able to hit anything anymore and be able to do smart summon, might be able to do parking. Again, this does not necessarily require regulatory approval for robotaxi. So
no,
this could be quite mind-boggling, I think.
It could. I think you're absolutely right that the financial potential is massive, because a lot of companies are going to start taking a look at Tesla. Number one, they've got the cost down, right? It doesn't cost that much anymore. The cameras are not very expensive at all. The hardware to put in it, that costs some money, but it's not that much. So you're right. Tesla would make a nice profit if they charge $4,000 or $5,000 for like, here's the hardware. The other option is that Tesla could also another model could be that these other car companies, so Ford or VW or whoever, could install this, and then Tesla could say or they could sell it. VW could say for $200 a month, we'll give you the ADAS stuff, and Tesla then takes a chunk of that, so that their licensing instead
Yeah.
could be a monthly subscription thing, and that's contingent. If that car is around for 10 years, that's way more money than $4,000 or $5,000. Even if they're only making, 25 or $30 a month, it's gonna add up very quickly. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing where you could conceive of a different methodology, or maybe they could sell the basic stuff, and so they sell that for a price. And if people want the full self-driving experience in a VW ID4 or ID5 or whatever it is, then you pay directly to Tesla for that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different business models, and all of them look really good for Tesla. And the big thing is that they've just removed
It's
everything.
amazing.
There's less
Yeah.
stuff. You don't have expensive LiDAR, you don't have to have radar, you don't have to have ultrasonics anymore. It's crazy.
And then the other thing, because actually I just thought about it just now, is that the regulatory NHTSA could actually work in favor this time in
Oh yeah.
support, because didn't they recently put I again don't know the details of this, but Ford collision warning is becoming something that they're now enforcing that all car manufacturers must have. Then I heard a rumor or something that Ford doesn't have that capability, and so that might be one of the first things that they might license from somebody like a Tesla. I don't know. That doesn't sound right, but
Interesting.
that's what I heard.
Well, it makes sense that
But
I mean,
yeah,
NHTSA cares, and every other regulatory body in all the other countries too, and European Union and everything. That's what they care about. They want to save people's lives and health. They don't want people being injured or killed. So if a new technology comes out, I mean, it's like saying airbags. When I was a kid, airbags weren't
yeah,
a thing. In fact, anti-lock brakes weren't a
yeah,
thing, but those were mandated over time because it was obvious the safety benefits. So now the one weird
yeah,
thing about this is that Tesla, if they're sort of monopolistically owning the technology, there could be an issue with that people could be they could
gotcha.
say like
Makes sense.
it's
Yeah,
got to be a regulatory standard that anyone can implement. So who knows what'll happen with that. But I think that in terms of
yeah,
safety, yeah, like I could see once this becomes a regular thing and the collision avoidance is just normal, that the car would not be allowed to be sold without collision avoidance anymore, because it's like you're just potentially killing people, right? It's like
yeah,
somebody has a heart attack or falls asleep, or God forbid they're drunk or something like that, or
yeah,
stupid on the road, that the car will save them from a horrible accident, potentially killing
yeah.
themselves or somebody else.
It's it's like what Volvo did when they patented the seatbelt and then they just gave it away for everybody. Maybe
Right.
Tesla will just go ahead and do that, but oh my God. Anyways, I am
Yeah.
feeling really good about this, not only for the stock and
Right.
business, but I think that we all were thinking that we had to wait for robotaxi before the world will be better and less deaths. The
Right.
230,000 people dying every year, the 2 million,
Right.
3 million people getting injured because of motor vehicle accidents. A lot of that will be removed. So I'm feeling very good
Yeah.
about this. So let's talk about full self-driving and on its way to robotaxi.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this for a long time. A lot of people
Right.
know the ins and outs of it. What's your perspective of this? What's your expectation of where this is going to go? Just curious, your thinking.
So are you asking like a timeline? I have a
Well,
huge optimism
you don't have to
bias
give
when
me
it comes
one.
to that.
Oh,
So
really? You do? I like that. I do
yeah,
too.
well, no, I mean, I feel like I feel like I still, and I know it's October and we're less than 3 months from the end of the year, but I'm still pretty confident that we're going to be better, that FSD is going to be better than the average driver by the end of the year. So I
Hmm.
got to be very, very careful. That doesn't mean it'll be approved to be a robotaxi. It doesn't mean that it'll be better than the best drivers. But, if you take the bell curve of drivers, there's half the people of the world are on the bottom half of that bell curve, which means that if FSD can get to just the middle of the bell curve, just the average driver, that means it's better than half of the world's drivers already. Or let's just take the United States and Canada, because that's where it's being released right now. But so take like I don't even know how many drivers there would be, a couple 100 million drivers in the US and Canada. And so you could just say, like, let's just say there were 200 million drivers, active drivers in the US and Canada. That means that if it was in the middle of the bell curve, it's better than 100 million drivers on the road right now. And that's amazing. It doesn't have to get to that crazy little tail where it's like better than
Hmm.
99.9% of the drivers. If it's better than half of them, that's already saving lives and making the world a better place. That's really cool. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. The
so
way
again,
I
I'm
see,
optimistic it could happen this year, maybe.
yeah.
So
So it all, like you just said, it depends on your definition of what this is. And
right,
people are getting very, very confused with all the
right,
different ways to think about this. But so what he has said is that by the end of this year, full self-driving beta will be made available for any Tesla that has either bought it or subscribed to it, and they can just turn it on. They don't need to do
right,
the safety feature. Okay. That
right,
was the goal for the end of this year. Now, the other goal is that it needs to be better than a human. So, what is that
right.
definition? Better than a human? Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's a that's a lot of stuff. I Okay, so I think what we've got right now, I'm calling it like cyborg driving, but essentially I feel like
Mm.
the safest driver right now is the human driving FSD beta, because you're getting the best of both worlds. And
Right.
that so individually, yes, FSD beta, like if I'm like, see, if I go out and do one of those videos where like my first test drive of the new version of the software and I don't touch anything, there are stressful moments where I'm like, oh gosh, what's it gonna do? And Chuck Cook was actually with Omar's catalog. He did a video about him driving to Tesla's AI Day, and he was like, Omar has like an amazing ability to not intervene under circumstances where most people would go like, grab the wheel, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why he's like no interventions for 5 hours or something, because he's like, it's gonna figure it out eventually. But anyway, but right now what happens is that like 95% of the drive plus the car is just fine. And now, at least in the area that I live, and like you're saying, in Seattle for you or something, the areas that it's going to have problems with. Like you can sort of see it coming already, because
Mhm.
we're sort of trained now to be FSD drivers. So, but there are moments that I've got a 15-year-old. He's got a learner's permit, so he's driving with me, and he started driving the Tesla. We made him start on the gas car because we're like, okay, we don't want to give him too much power too fast. But so now he's driving
Mhm.
the Tesla, and yesterday he was driving home from school, and he like looked around at something to make sure that another lane was clear, and cars started stopping in front of him, and the car went beep beep beep, it like did that warning thing, and he
Of
slammed
course.
the yeah, and I think the car slammed the brakes on, or he did it anyway, but the warning thing came up, and I was like, that just made him a safer driver than he would have been if he was driving another car that didn't have that warning system on. And that is
Yeah.
pretty remarkable, which is why I'm calling the cyborg driving right now. So it's like you've got where the human is better and where the car is better. And when you put the two of those together, you get better than either. So I feel like with full self-driving, I'm definitely a better driver than I am totally by myself. And gosh, going on long trips, my parents live like 10 hours away. So for that kind of a trip, I can't even imagine doing it without full self-driving anymore. It's it's like you get tired. I'm a perfectly good driver. I can drive 20 minutes to work, 20 minutes home. Great. I can do that by myself without a problem, although I'm really lazy and I don't want to anymore. But I can do that, and probably I'm a better driver than the full self-driving is if it was just by itself and I was just by myself. But on a 10-hour drive, I guarantee you that it's better after a couple of hours, because you just get tired as a human being and you can't focus that long and that intently for that many hours. So that's when it really comes into its own. And I know that's not full self-driving beta yet, because that's like enhanced navigate on autopilot for the highways, but it's still using the vision stack. It's more or less the same thing at this point.
Yeah. So do you when you hear, when I listen to Tesla and what they say, they really are feeling confident, it feels to me. If I piece everything together, that robotaxi is coming. They started talking about creating a design for the dedicated robotaxi, which they'll probably release that design next year, right? It's like no
Right.
steering wheel, right? No pedals. And they feel very comfortable, and it's going to be designed in such a way that it's going to be, catering to the occupant. And they still think, and they keep talking about how this is going to be, it's moving and improving, and we're going to get there. And so, what's
Yeah.
your thought about this? And knowing what you know about exponential curves and the exponential
Right.
progress of innovation.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. It's there's The problem is that exponential curves always have a tail off at the end. Well, I mean, yeah, even population, right? If you consider population growth, it goes up. And then if you look at like the classic fish in a pond, they get to a certain amount and then it levels off because they can't grow anymore because there's no more resources. So every exponential curve has kind of an S shape to it. The question is, for full self-driving, are we at the beginning of the really steep part, or are we at the end and it's just about to tail over and we're going to have to wait for another 5 years for whatever the next generation of thing is to start it off again? My personal feeling is, and I've looked very, very deeply into transformers and actually am using them myself right now for some other things. So I feel like I have a pretty decent understanding of transformers and neural networks, sorry, not the Autobots or anything,
Yeah,
but
you
yeah, that would be a very different thing. I should actually get a little Autobot and put it back there as a joke. But anyway, I feel like they are very particularly good at getting really good without that tail off happening as you add more data to them. So I think that we're somewhere between the beginning and the middle of that steep part, and we haven't reached the tail off yet. So if we are, then within a year, there's no question in my mind, unless things go like that, we'll absolutely have cars that can drive themselves completely safely and with pretty much comfort. I don't know about you, but my wife is much less, let's say, amenable to when the car makes dumb moves and like jerks or something like that. She's like, "What is it doing?" You know. So I'm just like, "Oh, it's just doing its thing. It's just a silly car." But I think that's another thing that it's working on, is to try to get rid of all of that sort of stuff too, so that the car is more smooth, and that when you're riding in it, you don't notice that a human being isn't driving anymore because it's not doing robot stuff anymore. So I think, yeah, I think
So
it's going to get there.
so I believe that it's going to happen. I think we're here.
Yeah.
Not here, but it's we don't need to wait for another S curve.
Right.
And the reason I say that is that you were at AI Day too. You were there.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
Yeah. I know. It was pretty cool.
And when that Kate Park demo blew me away, and when she showed that one example, where one edge case, right, where there's this car kind of like sitting in the corner there, and you don't know if that's a parked car or if it's a person that's waiting to try to cross or not cross.
Right.
And it was a parked car, but just the way it was positioned, everything, it certainly looked like that it was, cross traffic. And then
Right.
they fed it this edge case with all these videos, and then now it's got that figured out.
Right.
Okay. And so it's like, we're there. If it can figure
Yeah.
that out, and it's just a matter of them knocking out the March of Nines, all these different edge cases. So I don't know if there's going to be a limiting step anymore, because occupancy network has shown me that that was the thing for me, right? Occupancy network is knowing the lanes, knowing what's open and not open. Okay, cross fingers, but we'll see what happens. But I think that by next year, by 2 years, and again, it's like exponential, right? We are, where we were 2 years ago, where we are today, and then, which feels slow, feels like, yeah, that was a huge improvement, but it wasn't, it wasn't that noticeable. But I think it's going to be very quickly all of a sudden, and it's going to happen like that all of a sudden.
I don't know if you've seen that picture. There's like a kind of a meme that's out right now where there's like a growth curve of AI intelligence, and it's like worm, lizard, fish, like cat, and then it gets up to dumb human, and then it gets to like really smart human, and then it gets to crazy smart, like above human level. But the bottom part is very, very slow, and then there's time on this axis. So it's like long time. No results, nothing really important's happening. But when it starts to tip up, it's like, and right now I would say that FSD is kind of dumb human. It's pretty good, but it's not that great. It's still like a person with a learner's permit. So, it makes mistakes. But the difference in time between that and smart human or good human in terms of this driver, and then like way beyond what human capabilities are, is so short. I think it's also, I was actually talking to one of my Patreon patrons on Discord about this just very recently. He was saying, well, eventually Teslabot, or sorry, not Teslabot, but full self-driving won't be able to get any better because humans won't be driving anymore. And how will it learn? And I was like, no, it's actually still going to be able to keep learning. So one thing that's really important, and I meant to say this earlier, is the thing you have to think about FSD is it's not a destination, it's a journey. There's literally no way to ever drive perfectly. No computer, no nothing can ever drive perfectly. So it's always getting better and better and better. So the question is, how quickly can you get better than every single human being? But anyway, so oh gosh, what was I saying? I was talking to my Patreon patron about the full
Exponential
self-driving.
curve. Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't it though. Oh well, I'll come back to it. I'll remember it in a minute. I got sidetracked by the other thought. But anyway, these things. Oh, he was saying, how could it get any better? Like after humans stop driving. So let's just say it's 2040. All humans are off the road. You're not allowed to drive anymore, except on like car farms, just like a horse farm now. And he's like, well, then it's never going to get better. And I'm like, no, it definitely will, because still accidents will happen. They will be very rare, but they'll happen. And the car eventually will be making microscopic judgments about itself. It's like, was I 2 millimeters over to the right of where I should have been for this trajectory? And it will constantly be feeding itself that data and learning. So I think it will actually get even better. Like it will actually accelerate and get better as only robots are driving.
And that's not how they teach Go, the mind, how to beat the best humans in Go and chess. They initially tried to feed it examples of how humans would play the game, and it didn't beat them. And then they eventually moved to the model where they just let the computer teach itself what to do. No human videos needed to throw in what the human would have done. They just let it play against each other. And then the computer learned how to do moves that no human would ever do. So all the pundits were going, why did that computer do that Go move at so early in the game, which is so stupid? It was like no human would ever have done that. And it turned out that was a very long game. So not worried about that.
No, and I mean, I think that there is a stage where there is a stage where you have to give it human, like, the early versions of chess and Go and things like that, they did feed it games, but that you're right. The part where it gets the flywheel, where it can teach itself, that's when things get really good. So yes. And speaking of that, let's do Teslabot. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about Transformers, and we know that they called it Optimus, and then they called it, what is it, the B or something?
Bumble C, which nobody said anything about that, so I had to call it out. I'm sure that's Bumblebee, which is one of the Transformers. Yeah. So Optimus is the leader of the Transformers, and so anyway, so he's Bumble C instead of Bumblebee.
Yeah, and it makes sense because they're a car manufacturer trying to now make robots, and so
yeah, and it was appropriate. I mean, the way he walked and everything was a little bumbly, but this is where you get to the dumb human thing. It's like everybody was like, oh, haha, look at how dumb that thing is, and I'm like, oh, but the time difference between dumb robot and smart robot, and like really, and I mean, I shouldn't say smart, but like dexterous. It looked very bumbly, but the difference between that and like a super elegant robot that's going to be able to walk and do a whole bunch of things is really small. That time difference is tiny at this point. Yeah. I'm very convinced that a year from now, it's going to be doing useful work in the factories, and there's going to be lots of them being manufactured.
Wow, you are optimistic. 1 year from now, huh?
I literally, like seconds before we started recording, I released a video that said Teslabot has already won. It's a done deal. They've already, it's robotics, humanoid robots are already a solved problem. Nobody realizes that yet. It's completely done. And the reason why, and everyone's like, look, it doesn't do anything that Boston Dynamics can't and stuff, but those companies all are using hard coding to do all of this stuff.
Yes.
That thing walked out on stage in a continuously changing lighting environment using its cameras and nothing else. It used its cameras and its brains and some stuff that it had trained on how to walk.
Well,
it's remarkable.
2 months ago,
remarkable.
We saw Akimo, or who was it?
Asimov was. What was the name of that one? Wasn't Huawei? I believe that was their robot, but it was and had the
Mm-hmm. So I mean, I thought it could be that, but you're assuming that this was showing off the FSD beta in the brains doing this.
I guarantee you that it was scripted. I mean, it came out and it did what it was told to do. But what I'm talking about is its ability to understand the world around it. So yeah, absolutely, it was scripted and it was told to walk out and do this, this kind of thing. That's not the part I'm talking about. I'm talking about the part that it was using its cameras and the full self-driving computer on its chest to comprehend the world around it, to know where it was in space, to walk into that space arrive at the right place while the lights were all changing, right? They didn't put a big, giant, nice, pretty spotlight on it to give it like really good lighting for the consistency. It was this crazy like background lights and stuff. And then it turned around and it walked into those lights. So that stuff that it was doing was remarkable. Unless I'm completely mistaken and it was completely hard coded, but I just don't think that I don't think the robot works that way. They haven't hard coded it. This thing is neural network based from the ground up.
Yeah, regardless of for this demo, if it's hardcoded or not, what blew me away about the AI day was, of course, everybody's excited about how is this robot going to look and how it's going to walk and all that, and how you're going to manufacture it. But the part that obviously we're all very interested in is FSD being transported into the bot body and then what it can see. So they showed a visual of what it sees, much like they
Right.
show visuals of what the car sees. And I was blown away how it wasn't like this, it was very high fidelity where it almost looks like a video camera looking at the room and what it is. But you know what I mean? Like it actually
Right.
sees it, and we know that it knows, like you said, everything it can do with a car. It knows if what the objects are, and eventually it'll label them. But right now, at least it knows. If I want to grab the watering can, that one obviously was a
Right.
video. So who knows if that was a human person that kind of like controlling it, remote controlling it or
Right.
not, but still it was able to
I,
grab it, right?
I don't think it was. They were showing, I'm trying to remember if the watering can, if they showed the external view, but at least with the box, they were showing it walking. And
They
I mean,
did.
that would have been, yeah, I mean,
They
and
did, yeah.
yeah, so if there was a person with a joystick back there controlling it, I would be surprised. I think the whole point is that you can say, pick up the box, move it over here, set it down. That's the whole point of this robot. And I do want to point out, like people are poo-pooing the hardware of the robot too, but the difference between Bumble C and their actual prototype, actually got to get really close to it because we were
I
able to
know
take
you did.
pictures, which was so cool. So anyway, but it has these actuators that are in there that they're custom designing are beastly things. They're huge, and then down to like little teeny ones inside the
Yeah.
hands. So like really fast twitch muscle kind of things. They're able to react really rapidly. Anyway, so they're just working on every single front. And I think the big front that everybody's concerned about is data, but I actually have a counter argument against that. But in terms of the hardware and the software, they've solved so many fundamental research projects just in the past year that it's just brilliant. I mean, what they've done with the hands, like the I can't remember that robot's name, but anyway, the one that came out and they showed it falling down and getting up and picking up the flower and bringing it to the CEO. It just has this super simple gripper
Yes.
hands. And
Yeah.
Teslabot is nothing like that. They figured out the minimum amount of controls that they had to have a dexterous hand that could make a grasping motion, and that's what they've got, and it's brilliant. These kind of things are
Yeah.
just it's amazing.
So I understand that there's two ways that the companies who are building robots are teaching the bots what to do, right? So I was
Right,
watching this video that Robert Scoble was in with Giant AI, and
right,
what they did there was they had a human put on machine learning AR glasses. That person then is able to see through the eyes of the robot. Then they have this thing, and whatever they do, the robot will do. And so they
right,
they teach it like, okay, here's a water bottle on the table, and they teach it, I'm going to grab it and I'm going to move it here. Then they move the water bottle somewhere else. They have it fall somewhere, and then they grab it and then do it. And then
right,
now it's teaching the robot this environment, how to recognize that that's the bottle and how to grab it and what strength and so forth, and move it somewhere else. That's how they did it. So after 50, 100 times of teaching it that move, then you learn how to do it. And
right.
I think they showed that in AI Day, where they showed that there's this thing that a
Yes,
human can wear
yes,
and the
right,
glass. So,
yeah,
and the second way is simulation, right? Just feed simulation, and whatever your AI sees, just like it does in the car, then it's able to learn it. And then so
right.
between those two features, right? So the question is, how will this bot learn in the future? So is it just that they will feed it all the simulation and that's it? Or as I've been hoping and predicting, I think that maybe Tesla will get into AR glasses. and you and
Oh,
I will be able to get an AR glasses. And I walk around my home, I open up my fridge, it sees a beer can and a Coke can, and then I grab the Coke can and I go somewhere. Now, all those videos are being fed
right, right.
into, the master database, and then it sees us humans doing that. I don't know. I'm just guessing. How would this happen?
So, all right. So I think it's worth backing up just a moment. And this is something, like I said, I just did this
Mm,
video, so it's like right on the top of my head. But the data thing is what everybody says. No, 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 there's not enough data, so you can't do this. But I'm going to make what I think is a pretty tight analogy between GPT-3 and DALL-E 2, which are two pieces of software
okay.
that OpenAI released, right? So GPT-3 is Generative
Mm,
Pre-trained Transformer 3. It's got 174 billion parameters. It cost $5 million to train. In other words, that amount of compute time. It was a massive amount of compute time to train this thing. Dolly, so okay, so that was trained on trillions of words, literally trillions of words of stuff from the internet. They just sucked it all in and they did what's called unconstrained training. It just said, here's the stuff, you figure it out. And the way it works is really brilliant how this works. They do a sentence, so like the cat sat on the hat or something like that, and they remove the word cat. And then they say, computer, what is the word that's missing here? And it has to figure it out. And that doesn't work very well for 100 examples or a million examples. But when you have trillions of examples of this, it actually learns to understand what language is. And so it actually understands that. Okay, so that's number one. And that I'm likening to full self-driving. You've got billions of miles that human beings have driven on the roads. Unconstrained is whatever the hell we do. That's all data that's being fed in. So that's the equivalent of GPT-3. DALL-E 2 is a subset of that that's already trained, that they retrained on, again, a lot of data, but a whole lot less than the original GPT-3. And it produces the cool work where you can say, like, show me a picture of a cat sitting on a hat, and it will draw you a picture of that, and fanciful, whatever you want. It can be really, really cool. So I'm likening that to Teslabot. And what I'm thinking is the consequence of that is, because you're fine-tuning something that already exists. You have all of these beautiful neural networks that you've created the architecture for. You've trained the weights. You've got everything tuned really, really nicely. Now you're transferring it over. You don't need nearly as much data as people think in order for this thing to sense and understand the world. It's automatically, if you're training something from being an infant and just coming into the world to being like maybe 3 or 4 years old or 5 years old or something, Teslabot like is automatically jumping to being 5. And so it just has to go from that to being able to be a useful thing, right? That's the kind of advantage you get. And it doesn't need all of that beginning data because all of these weights are already so close to right anyway. So I think that's where we're going to get this massive advantage for Teslabot, and it's not going to need as much data as people think. But I think everything you're saying is right. I mean, obviously, people doing actions and simulating that, they showed that at AI Day. Obviously, they showed simulation. I think it's actually a brilliant idea. I mean, Tesla marketing, if they could do it, like Facebook has some glasses now that have little cameras in them and you can record stuff. And if Tesla created something like that that was a fun consumer, oh hell. I mean, they made like the cyber whistle, which is like right back there. I mean, that
And we
does
all bought it.
nothing. Yeah, and we all bought it. So I mean, they could do it and just say like, hey, you're gonna help train the Tesla bot. It's $300 and everyone will be like, okay. But
Yeah.
if they could make it somewhat useful so that people would want to wear it around and it would just be a fun thing to do, sort of
Yeah.
gamify it or something, then you're absolutely right, because then they can monetize it. So that's been the big advantage that Tesla's had, is that they've monetized full self-driving. All these people driving their cars and driving the full self-driving have paid for it. Every other company pays these engineers 6 figures plus to drive around and do this. That's a completely opposite economic,
Mm,
incentivizing thing. And that's why Tesla's really unstoppable in this whole area. But I think, that's actually brilliant. If
yeah.
they did something like these VR or AR glasses or something, yeah.
Yeah. I love what you just said there. So that blew my mind. I mean, it made me remember of how humans, grow up and learn, right? So when you are an infant, there's this thing called objects permanence, where
Right.
if you hide the object
Voice.
behind a set of books or something, that the infant thinks that it's gone and it's gone and disappeared. They don't understand and think that, realize that it's still sitting. It's just, I can't see it, but it's behind this books.
Right.
But
Right.
then by 6 months of age, they figure that out already, and you can't trick them anymore. So this is the kind, like, if you just, like, it's a generic thing, right? It applies to everything. It's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't apply to a bottle, to a book. It's just the fact that it's object and it's still there. And so that's the generic thing that's, these, the bot, or like you said, already has, because of what we've already done with the FSD. And then the other things about labeling, and again, the whole brain is already, the neural nets are already there. It's
Right.
just a matter of, you know, figuring things out at some point. So
Yeah, and if you have edge
very
cases that are
exciting.
difficult, you've got this simulation engine that they've already built for full self-driving. So you could run 1 million simulations in an hour
Yeah.
of this thing having problems and like a specific. So anything it does have problems with, they can train it really fast to fix those problems. I think about like kids. Did you say you had a kid? So but this kind of thing when they do
Yeah.
this all the freaking time when they're babies, they drop it off their high chair and they expect you to pick it up so they can drop it again. And it's so frustrating as an adult. So that's why I remember it, because I'm like, oh, that's so frustrating. But it's them learning the world. They're basically like, oh, this is how physics works. If I let go of something, it doesn't go up. Like if you get a kid the right age and you give them something like a helium balloon and they let it go and it goes up, their minds go. You can just see them absolutely going, what is going on? That's not what's supposed to happen. So, so that it's that kind of thing. And what we've got is full self-driving is the baby through toddler stage or something. It's already given Optimus that a huge advantage. It's already much older than it should be. So that's huge. It's massive.
So you are one of the few humans that was there on the date
Yeah.
that the bot walked out. And what I've been saying and repeating many times in the last month is that, this is a moment in history, and
Yeah.
it's a big moment. Now, I said it doesn't matter if it was just like half the body and it doesn't do anything. It's still going to be the moment when we're all going to come back 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from
Right.
now. The history books will go back hundreds from now and go, that was the date. Look at, the way that the bot looked at that point and didn't know what to do. But this is the bot that's going to succeed. You were there. You had the chance to
know.
experience it. What was your reaction when you were up close to it and it walked out, and just feeling like, my God, the electricity of all these smart people here, and they're working on this problem?
Right. Oh man. It's a little difficult to even the thing is that like that I was on the left side in the second row, and so Elon Musk walked out and was standing like right in front of me. And so that was a little distracting because I
Wow.
was like, oh crap, Elon Musk is there. And then of course the thing opens up and the Teslabot walks out. I had heard, I can say this now, it was sort of embargoed before this, but I know somebody, I don't know this for a fact, but I think this was like early August, so like 2 months ago-ish before the demo. He said that Teslabot was a pile of stuff and wires on the ground. He just said it was just pieces everywhere, and they were putting them together and testing out. So the rate at which they were able to progress this thing from a completely unusable state to something where it was performing actual functions is really remarkable. And again, the funny thing to me was, I guess my reaction was, holy crap, this is the future. All the stuff that we dreamed about as kids, all the science fiction novels, watching iRobot or reading iRobot, whatever, all of that kind of stuff is like, oh, it's coming true. And then the next day, it was so disappointing to see just a stream of headlines
Sure.
saying like, this is ridiculous. This is the worst robot ever. What are they thinking? This is not good. And I'm like, you guys just don't understand at all what just happened. And maybe it'll be likened to the like the GM EV1 or something back in the 90s, the first electric car, which was fantastic, by the way, and then GM scrapped it. But we'll look back on this 20 plus years from now and say like, this is that. Like Bumble C was like the EV1, and hopefully Tesla won't scrap it and crush them. But but you'll see the direct lineage of all of these things coming out of that original product. That's how important it'll be.
Yeah, I'm shocked that you said that you thought that it was going to be like 1 year from now. You see this functioning in a factory,
Oh, yeah.
and you think maybe 1,000 bots already created or something like that, right?
Yeah, I'm hesitant to say how many because they have to create a
Yeah,
production line to make these bots, and I think they're still working on it. Scott Walter, who I've had a lot of interviews with, and he's
yeah,
a factory robotics expert. He's like Elon Musk always says prototypes are easy, production is hard. He's like, for Optimus, it's going to be exactly the opposite, and I completely agree with him. The prototypes are hard. because they're doing something to, people have built cars, so you know what a car looks like. But building a humanoid robot down in the detail level, no. All of that stuff, and that's why I was saying, like, they've solved things like the hand, and it can make grips and stuff. It can walk using neural networks, not using hard-coded stuff. It's got custom-made actuators that are starting to be built for these things. This is all really difficult and fundamental research and could be prone to just failing. When you're at that level, it just might not work. But that's why I'm like, Tesla's already won. The Teslabot has already won the race because this stuff works. Even though it's completely imperfect at this point and has a long ways to go, the fact that they've covered the fundamental research areas, all of them, means that this thing has nowhere to go but up at this point. And that's why I think a year is a long time. I think we could be looking at these things in the factory in 6 months. Now, again,
I agree with you.
don't know how many, because without a production line, everyone's going to be custom built. So there's only so many they can make that way, but there will be ones in the factory. Like, I will almost guarantee it in a year from now.
Oh yeah, I mean, so obviously they're building it for manufacturing capabilities, because everything they talked about was they need everything to be slim form factor. It had to be scalable, and it had to be something that you can manufacture at scale, scalable, and something you can manufacture. And so when they talked about the actuators,
for a reasonable price. For a reasonable price. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So the reason why they're doing that now, when they're creating the prototype, is because they're already creating that factory line of how they're going to create all this. Because what matters is volume. If you have 1,000 robots, and it's like the brain is what matters more, and so just make the body as cheap as possible. But it's the brain. If the brain can, it's like us. We're pathetic human beings. We really can't carry much at all.
No.
And everything here is easy to break. But it's the brains allows us to figure things out and how not to hurt ourselves. We don't use brute strength because we can figure things out. But so I know you say this too, and we all get this. It's that Tesla's the only company in the friggin' world that can actually do this.
Right.
Because you need a lot of things in your skills and expertise and assets. Otherwise, you won't be able to do this. So if you're Google, you might have the supercomputer, you might have the brains, you might be able to teach it how to do DALL-E and GPT and be able to do simulation and learn things. But you have zero factories, manufacturing. So how would you create the bots yourself and make millions of them? You would need to try to outsource it, but those companies no one has created, like you said, there's lots of car companies that's made cars before, but there's no robotic companies made millions of robots before, right?
Right.
So you need all of this together. You need a supercomputer, you need neural nets, you need to have the manufacturing capability to make this happen. And so I don't know any other company that can do this. Can Honda do it now that they bought Boston Dynamics? Can they do it?
I think they're missing the brains aspect.
But they don't have the supercomputer.
Yeah. So the other thing you're missing is just the willingness, the vision, and the willingness, the guts to do this. Like, that's one of the things that Elon Musk is just famous for, is it's like, this is crazy. Why would anybody think that this is a good idea? And he's like, yeah, we can do this. And not only I think we can do this, I'm going to throw a crap ton of money at it. And we're going to just keep heading at it. We'll just bang our heads against the wall until we get it. I can't imagine how many sleepless nights those robots on stage represented. That was a lot of time and stress and effort. And of course, not to take away anything from all of the people who laid the fundamental research to make all this happen, right? This didn't just appear out of a vacuum. They were working with, was it Dennis Hong at Romella and at UCLA and tons of other people, right? So they're standing on the shoulders of giants. So it's absolutely not going like, look, Tesla did this in a vacuum without anybody else being around. No, obviously not. But to put it all together, I think it's worth looking at just the actuators, for example, and people don't pay enough attention to this. So for one thing, and you were talking about the brains compensating for things, and Scott's talked about this, and it's not something I think about a lot, except recently I have, because he talked about it. We have compliance in our hands, and what that means is, like when we grip something,
Mhm.
we don't grow to the exact same spot every single time when we grip it. And if you
Mhm.
think about like a factory robot, like one of those ones that's like like
Mhm.
that, those things
It's
have to know down
precision.
to the it's down to the millimeter where the object is going to be and down to the millimeter where it's going because it's stupid. It's really strong and it's really fast and it'll do things repetitively over and over again. But we humans, because we're made the way we are, we're squishy. Our hands are not going to end up in the exact same place every time. So our brains compensate. We're sensing it, we're looking at it, we're feeling it, and we compensate for the fact that every single time is a little bit different. That's what you're getting with this robot. You don't have to build an expensive robot because the brain can compensate. The reason why those KUKA robots and the FANUC robots and stuff are super expensive in the factory is because they have to be super precision made so that they have really tight tolerances so they don't vary. They have to be really, really, and even so, Scott says that every one of them has to be calibrated. Every time you move it, you
Mm.
have to recalibrate it. So here you've got a brain that's constantly recalibrating. So anyway, the actuators, they're custom designing actuators, but they don't have an actuator for the knee and an actuator for the hip and an actuator
Yeah.
for the torso and the actuator for the shoulder. They have, I think, two actuators do
Yeah.
all of those different motions. So they're also reduce the parts, because that way, instead of making 6 of these different actuators per robot, you only have to make 2 versions of it, which means your assembly line is making a third as many actuators for those particular parts of the body. And that means that you can produce 3 times more. And that means you get economies of scale. And that, so they're absolutely going like, how can we make this inexpensively? And that's critical. It's absolutely critical to making this robot.
The hands. Let's talk
Exactly.
about the
The hands.
hands.
Ooh. That's one of
Did
the
you
places
know
where
they were going to come out with 5 fingers? A lot of people said that that was pretty obvious, but obviously, if you look at Boston Dynamics, they have
right.
like this. Then you see the
Right.
other guys that have
It's
this.
like this. You're
Why is
right.
it that they haven't done this? Because it's hard. It's not easy.
It's
You're
very
talking
hard.
about 5 digits that are moving independently from each other
Right.
and being able to teach it what to do. But it's so obvious. We know the opposable thumb is so critical.
Right.
But I was blown away, and I know that that's just a marketing video. But when I did that, just the movement of
Right.
the heart thing, that's gorgeous, beautiful. It was wonderful.
Right.
But yeah, what's your opinions or any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I'll start with the compliance thing. So obviously, if you've got these hands, they're being controlled by cables and stuff like that. They're not direct actuators in each finger. And this sort of motion is not exact every time. So that's why you need the brains. It's got to be able to understand where these hands are through different
How
methodologies.
does it
Then,
sense? How does it sense? It doesn't have skin.
they didn't tell us.
Doesn't have
Yeah.
cameras.
Well, they have cameras in the eyes, so you can certainly look at it and decide if
No,
you
but
close it, but you don't know how much force you put on it. You don't want to squeeze
yeah.
like a plastic bottle too tightly. So more than likely, it's either got some sort of resistive measurement inside, or Scott says you can actually measure the current across these things, and it will
Ah,
tell you how much effort you're putting into it. So there are ways of sensing it through the sensors. I don't know that there's actually any sensors in the fingers at this point. Maybe there are. They're hidden underneath kind of like rubber pads, so it's a little hard to tell. Um, but there could be basic ones, right? That just you push on it and it just has like that thing as it squishes down, it just resists more. And so it knows that it's pushing harder. So that would be a pretty basic thing you could put in. But I think I I thought I was always convinced there were at least 3 fingers on the hand plus the thumb. I didn't know if the pinky was gonna be there, and we made so much hay out of that in all these videos. But, it was really funny. It wasn't literally until walking into AI Day and they had this picture again, but then they had
yeah.
this picture on another wall, and I was like, "Oh,
Yes.
it's got 5 fingers." So, it wasn't
Yes.
until that moment that I knew it had 5 fingers. But a lot of people didn't think they were real hands. They thought they were CGI renders. I never thought that. I was like, "Nope, nope. If they were doing CGI, they would have made it look like the original plastic, beautiful Optimus." I was like, "This is real," and I'm very proud that I was actually right about that. But look at what they've done. They've created fingers that don't have all of these controls. It's only got a hinge joint here. Sorry, it's hard to point. A hinge joint here and a hinge joint here. This is all one solid thing with a little bit of curl to it, and it pulls a cable like a fishing line. It's metal, but it goes like this. It goes, "Rrrr," and so it always curls the same way. But all you care about is this motion. If you can make that okay sign like it did, and you can grasp something, then you can grasp a excuse me, a power tool or your beer or whatever it is. You can. This is tea, not beer, but anyway. But you can. If you can get that basic grasping motion, it's never going to crochet. It's not going to be able to
Mhm.
pick up a quarter off the street. It won't be able to do or eat with chopsticks or something like that, right? It's not going to be able to do super dexterous things, but that's not what we need Teslabot version 1 to do. It's a factory
Yeah,
robot.
love it. Okay, lots of things. I want to keep talking about this, but I think we need to move forward to Cybertruck and Semi. These are
Yeah.
two products that are coming now. This is now. So Semi
Right.
yesterday, they announced that Semi is now partnered with Pepsi. Today, Pepsi confirmed it. They're going to be delivering the first semis to Pepsi December 1st. It's here. And
Yep.
Cybertruck. So Cybertruck
Yep.
is slated for production in June.
Right.
That could definitely slip. But I think, first of all, this is a signal that they're not battery constrained anymore. And I think
Right.
both of these needed
Right.
4680 batteries, correct? But my gosh, two massive new industries. And I think because they've been around for so long and we've been waiting for so long, we're kind of like, whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
no, this is a huge deal that
Yeah.
they're coming out now.
Yes, and and I'm also like I'm waiting with a little bit of bated breath to get the I don't some sort of new Cybertruck like event. I don't know if it'll be like when they actually start selling them to people. That would be sad if we had to wait for like that long. I really want to know what the new specs are
Yeah.
because Elon keeps teasing like this is going to be the best thing we've ever built, and I'm like, what beyond the Model S Plaid are we going to get with this beastie, right? It's like, what kind of crazy stuff? I think it's almost guaranteed that we're going to get hardware 4 in the Cybertruck. And maybe the semi is using that too. I kind of agree with Dave Lee that I have a feeling they're sneaking some hardware 4 into things now. I know that Optimus is using hardware 4 without a doubt. Like, again, outside speculation, but there's no way that they're still using the old hardware that's currently in our cars. They're using the
Yeah.
new one. And then new cameras. I think new cameras are starting to appear, and I think the Teslas that don't have the ultrasonic in them have the new Samsung 5.4
Mm,
megapixel cameras and possibly hardware 4 in them. So, but anyway, that what we're seeing is just the results of so many years of Tesla working hard at this. And obviously the pandemic, the chip
nice.
shortage, all of that stuff set them back as it did with everybody else. But now all of a sudden they're just like, we are ready to go guns blazing and you're right, the battery constraint is a huge thing. And I'm pretty sure you're right. I think that Cybertruck and Semi are completely dependent on 4680s. So
Yep.
that means that they have a huge amount of confidence that they're shipping the Semi now means that they have a massive amount of confidence in the ramp of their 4680 batteries. And that's amazing. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, so let's talk about Cybertruck features. And he talked about and shared that it's going to be able to, function as a boat for short periods
Right.
of times.
Right.
That he was hinting on that for a long time, but that alone is a big blow,
Right.
blow my mind kind of scenario, right? It's like awesome, my God.
Well, the
uh,
thing that goes
but
beyond
yeah,
that is it's not just floating. He said he wants to go across the South Padre Island Channel to get to Boca Chica, which would be cool, by the way. I'd love to do that. But I'm like, that's
well,
open ocean.
the
It-
tires,
I
the
don't
tires have
know.
to
Is it
do
going to
this
be
or something
James
like that.
Bond? I mean, I know that he loves the James Bond, that old
Yeah,
James Bond thing that was like the
he bought
amphibious
it.
car. Yeah, he bought it, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, are the tires going to turn sideways and a little fan's going to like a screw's going to come out the back and it's going to like be able to drive? I don't know. I mean, it's one thing to float, and I'm like, sure, okay, you just have to water seal the thing and it'll float, but to actually move through the water, it requires a lot of stuff that is not normally there. So I
Do you
don't
think
know.
that he's learned a lesson with Model X? Because obviously Model X was over-engineered. They had the
Right,
beautiful Falcon wings, and then they, later said, "Oh my gosh, that was a mistake. It was
right.
over-engineered, cost too much, made more issues, but they wanted to wow, and they did.
Yeah,
And now are they trying to do the same thing? But they really want to win the truck market and they want to just nail a coffin to the head for the massive truck market. So if I can
right.
just talk a little bit about that before I'm getting mixed up with all my things I want to talk about, but like, so obviously trucks is a big giant industry, market segment. And how do you compete when you now have stainless steel, so you can't bend this thing, break it, no
Right.
paint, so there's not going to be any paint issues. Let's say you don't like the shape, that almost doesn't matter. This is going to
Right.
be, I don't know, somebody said it could be as fast as a Porsche. I think Jay Leno's video, he said that it's going to
Mhm.
be Oh no, he said the Tesla Semi is going to be as fast as a
Right.
Porsche. But
Right.
this truck will be faster than maybe some of these supercars that are out there.
Right.
It's
Right.
indestructible, and it's going to have these features, right? So what
Right.
are the other features that's going to make this thing just so irresistible that you're just not going to buy a Ford One F-150 anymore?
Right. Okay. So I mean, I'm pretty convinced. Obviously, they haven't announced the new version of the Cybertruck yet, but it's almost definitely that they're going to have a four-motor version of the Cybertruck because they've talked about being able to do the
Right.
the whatever, that crab walk or whatever. So that
Independent wheels.
requires, yeah, it requires independent wheels and independent drives. So I think that's pretty much a given. So they'll probably have a two-motor, three-motor, four-motor, I guess. I don't know. They used to have the single motor, but that's what I have on order. So I'll have to change my order when the time comes and I'm allowed to change it. But so I think for sure that'll be there. It's interesting because like going for speed is probably, yeah, that's really cool in a truck, but also it's like
Mm.
that's not really
Mm.
the market. Like,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
it's like
You're right. You're right.
it's great. It's nice to be able to go fast, and I would love to be able. It's the thing that's really helpful in my Model Y, and it's just the long range, so it's only like, what is it, 4.8 seconds from 0 to 60, but, like, when I'm getting onto the highway, it's really nice to not have to worry about merging. I'm like, I can always get to whatever speed I need to get to and, get in, so it's very convenient. So it will be nice to have the Cybertruck, the big beastly truck, be able to get into where it needs to go as quickly as possible. I think the bigger thing would be, of course, the full self-driving aspect of it, as much of the ADAS as you have, and that's going to be a little bit of a challenge because most of the other Teslas are smaller. So they've now, with introducing the Cybertruck and especially the Semi, the whole aspect of full self-driving and ADAS and stuff is going to have to change because they have to. It's just a bigger volume, and a truck especially. It's like, well, geez, now you've got this giant trailer on the back that you're hauling around too. So there's some
Uh,
significant different issues that you don't have necessarily with smaller cars. Uh, I don't know. It's so weird because he talks about how it's going to be this amazing technology demonstration, but from what I've seen of the interior, and it seems to make sense to Tesla's aesthetic, it's going to be very, very plain, right? It's just going to be like your yoke steering wheel, one big monitor, maybe a little one for the speed that you're going and stuff, and probably one in the back seat now for the kids. But so the interior is not going to be that much different from any other Tesla, maybe a little bit more rough stuff so that you can get in when you're dirty and not mess it up. But I think it's all going to be under the hood. Whatever it is that they're putting in there is all going to be like stuff that's under the hood. And the motors just might be these incredibly high torque motors that can pull basically anything. I what would be a great demonstration for me would be if they took the Cybertruck and they put a gooseneck on the back of it and hauled a semi-trailer fully loaded with like 80,000 or 60,000 pounds, whatever the max weight is. If they could take that and pull a full semi-trailer behind it and go like, yeah, you can carry that if you want to. That kind of a demonstration would be pretty outrageous.
Yeah, I think what if they came out with something that's extensible and accessories they can add on. Like there's another company, Cyberlander, that's creating that camper that you
Right.
can put on the back. But
Awesome company.
obviously, they can have a whole new third parties ecosystem. But what if
Right.
they came out with a few things that says, oh, if you want, it's modular, right? So if you want this
Right.
thing to have like, I don't know. I can just, I don't know what it is, but like just add this on, and
Right.
all of a sudden it can do this.
Right.
Mm.
For sure, I think that the third party thing, that's one of the biggest deals about the F-150. And uh, actually,
Oh, okay.
talking to some people who want to manufacture parts for third party parts for Tesla, they're like, it would be really nice if they would give us the bed dimensions because they're like, we'd like to be able to
Yeah.
roll this out when the Cybertruck rolls out. So,
Mm.
Cyberlander and others, that it would be very convenient. And I think that it would behoove Tesla to work in that space because that's one of the major differentiators. That's why people buy F-150s aside from brand loyalty, is like, I can retrofit this with anything. There's stuff all over
Yeah.
the place. So I mean, a toolbox that Tesla had would probably be a useful thing. I would love to have a tent, just some sort of little pop-up thing that,
Hmm.
right, that you kind of buttoned up on the outside because it's a really big bed. So you just like pop that out, put the seats down, and have the climate control inside, and have like a little mini tent that you could stay in overnight if you wanted to. That would be a useful thing for me to have. I don't know, but yeah, but third-party stuff like just aftermarket things and having that ecosystem starting as fast as possible would be hugely beneficial.
I love it. Okay, well, we covered a lot of things today. Really appreciate this, John. I
Sure.
know that we just met yesterday, so I
No, it's
really
fine.
appreciate you coming on board. Thank you, everybody, and I appreciate this. Hopefully, you got a bit brighter, like we said. Please
Right.
follow John on YouTube as Dr. Know-It-All. I love that,
There you
John.
go.
He's also at Twitter at Dr. Know-It-All 16. Now, why do you have the 16
Right.
there, John? What's
I,
that?
I tried typing in Dr. Know-It-All and it just made it 16. I don't know why. Twitter's infinite wisdom decided that I had to be. I was like, I can't find any other Dr. Know-It-All 15 or 12 or anything like that. So I don't know where it came from.
Okay. All right. Well, then you
Cool.
don't know it all then.
I
Okay.
don't. I
Well,
don't. It was supposed to be a tongue-in-cheek name anyway, but people take it very seriously. So
oh, I know. You're funny. Okay. Well, hopefully you did get brighter. If you did, let me know in the comments what did you hear today that you loved the most, and which of these five major competitive differentiators that we talked about today, right? Automatic collision avoidance, FSD, Teslabot, Semi, and Cybertruck. Which one of these are going to be incredibly important for the business and the stock? Let me know. Thanks, everybody.